My friends and I went on a hike to watch a total eclipse. Only 2 of us made it back alive. It was August 21st, 2017, and the future was dark. Literally dark. That day, the first total solar eclipse visible from anywhere in the mainland United States since February 1979, which some media outlets were calling the Great American Eclipse, was due to cast its shadow over America. And it just so happened that my city, and the surrounding area, would be in the path of totality that afternoon, putting us in its umbra, its darkest shadow, and allowing us to witness the moon completely block the sun and reveal its corona. "You packed light," my best friend Josh pointed out to me that morning, gesturing to my obviously lightly packed backpack, as we walked from the parking lot to the trail. "Don't these things only last a few minutes?" I replied, having only barely researched the lunar event. But why should I have? After all, it had been Josh's brilliant idea to propose to his girlfriend, Allison, during the total eclipse, and bring me along for the ride to take photographs, aka third wheel. As a city guy, I never had any desire to go hiking in the wilderness, and had been dreading the trip ever since he told me about it. But Josh had been my best friend since elementary school, and had done more than enough favors for me over the years. So, I just swallowed my pride and went along with it. "They're saying about 2.5 minutes from where we are, specifically," Allison corrected. She's always been the best kind of nerd, I thought to myself, enviously. But I tried not to make eye contact with her. There was too much history there, too many emotions. And on top of all that, she and Josh were about to get engaged. "Got it," I replied, staring down at my feet, as I trudged along the rocky path, my boots crunching into the ground with every step. "What were you thinking? Agreeing to this?" I internally kicked myself, immediately regretting the decision. "You okay?" Josh asked. "You were pretty quiet in the car." "Yeah, I'm okay, thanks." I was not okay. But what was I supposed to say? "I'm still in love with your future wife?" "Let's take these photos and get the hell out of here," I thought to myself, before sneaking a few shots of Josh and Allison holding hands, as they walked ahead of me, careful to not make Allison suspicious, and while also throwing up in my mouth a little bit. But when we finally made it to the summit of the hill, where Josh had chosen to host the two-pronged occasion, I was pleasantly surprised to discover that I was not third-wheeling after all. There, sitting side by side in beach chairs, each with a beer in hand, were Bob and Kara, a married couple that Josh and I had befriended at a bar one night a couple months prior, and, in a very short amount of time, had completely infiltrated our friend group. "There they are," Bob called out. "Eclipse party," Kara yelled out even louder. "At least I have other people to talk to," I mumbled to myself, before turning to Josh and asking, "You didn't tell me Bob and Kara were joining?" "Thought I'd surprise you," he said, with a cheeky smile. "Theme of the day," I replied sarcastically, before immediately heading for the cooler, opening it, and reaching into its deepest depths, for the coldest beer I could possibly find. But after I removed a bottle, and opened it with my keychain, I looked down, and happened to notice that my finger was bleeding. I didn't think much of it, so I just held up my bloody finger to the group. "Hey, anybody got a bandage?" "Already?" Josh teased, shaking his head. "We can't take you anywhere." "Take him anywhere?" Allison chimed in. "I blame Bob and Kara. What kind of weapons are you keeping down there, at the bottom of your cooler?" The married couple simply sat there in silence for a moment, before turning to each other, then back at us, and bursting out laughing. "Got us," Kara said. "Busted," Bob added, before Josh tossed me the first aid kit and pivoted the conversation. Speaking of Bob and Kara, I just want to shout them out for coming up with the eclipse party idea in the first place. Everyone raised their beers and cheered as I wrapped a bandage around my finger. Bob and Kara, I thought to myself, as I faked a smile and raised my bottle. A few hours, and a lot of beers later, we were all sitting at the top of the hill, doing as friends do, and bantering about absolutely nothing of actual significance, when Bob looked down at his watch, and made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived," he declared, slurring his words a bit. "Everyone, get your sunglasses," Kara added, as she stumbled over to her backpack, and removed 5 pairs of cardboard sunglasses, specifically made for looking at eclipses, or so they claimed in the ads. We all put them on, and looked up at the sky. But nothing happened. Then, Josh lowered his sunglasses and started winking profusely at me. "Oh, right," I said, before reaching for my camera and pointing it at Josh, just in time to catch him getting down on one knee, removing a ring from his pocket, and holding it out to Allison. At first, she was completely confused, and looked around at everyone, as if to ask, "What's going on?" But then Josh uttered the words, "Allison, you're the love of my life. The apple of my eye. The moon to my sun." Allison, Bob, and Kara all chuckled at the timeliness of the joke a bit, but I couldn't bring myself to laugh at it. I just stood there, hiding behind my camera, snapping photos, hoping it would end quickly. Just get it over with already. "Will you marry me?" Josh asked, to a dramatic pause, before Allison finally replied. Oh my. Yes. Of course I will. And like that, Josh placed the ring on her finger, hopped up, and the two kissed, still wearing their sunglasses, just as the moon began to eclipse the sun. I snapped one last photo, which I'll admit, was pretty beautiful, before I couldn't bear until he got a few feet away. And suddenly stopped, to look up at the moon. But it was gone. In the moment that followed, he appeared to process what that meant, and what to do next, before he simply turned around and walked away. Allison and I sat there on the ground, shaking violently, as we clung to each other, paralyzed with fear, and watched him drift away into the distance. Until he was gone. When we eventually conjured enough energy to stand up, we hobbled back to the parking lot, and drove Josh's car, to the closest police station we could find, remaining silent almost the entire time. And after finally arrived at the precinct, it took us a good while to bring ourselves to speak, and describe to the authorities, the atrocities that had occurred in the shadow of the eclipse that day. The cops immediately raced to the trail, and recovered the bodies of Bob, Kara, and Josh, but the man with the scythe, the eclipse killer, as the detectives joked, was never found, left to roam the world and live amongst us, likely waiting to strike when the next eclipse arrives. And as for Allison and I, while the events of that day could just as well have bonded us, or been taken as a sign that we were meant to be together, we never talked about it again, and slowly drifted away. Just as the moon had drifted away from the sun on the afternoon of August 21, 2017. Still to this day, whenever I hear that an eclipse of any sort is coming, I think back to that hike, and worry for those who dare to venture out of their homes to observe it. While I, however, stay the inside.